Okay, freshmen, let's keep going with this book 5 read through. All right, we are right here. What is that, line 252? When young Dawn with her rose-red fingers shone once more, Odysseus quickly dressed himself in cloak and shirt, while the nymph slipped on a loose, glistening robe, filmy, a joy to the eye, and round her waist she ran a brocaded golden belt, and over her head a scarf to shield her brow, then turned to plan the great man's voyage home. She gave him a heavy bronze axe that fit his grip, both blades well honed with a fine olive haft lashed firm to its head. She gave him a polished, smoothing adze as well, and she led the way to the island's outer edge where trees grew large. Adlers, black poplars, and firs that shot sky high, seasoned, drying years, ideal for easy floating. Once she'd shown her guest where the tall timber stood, Calypso, the lustrous goddess, headed home again. He set to cutting trunks. The work was done in no time. 20 in all he felled. He trimmed them clean with his axe and split them deftly, trued them them straight to the line. Meanwhile, the radiant goddess brought him drills. He bored through all his planks and wedged them snugly, knocking them home together, locked with pegs and bolts, broad in the beam and bottom flat as a merchantman. When a master shipwright turns out her hull, so broad the craft Odysseus made himself, working away at speed. He put up half decks pinned to close set ribs, and a sweep of gunwales rounded off the sides. He fashioned the mast next and sank in its yard in deep and added a steering oar to hold her right on course. Then he fenced her stem to stern with twigs and wicker, bulwark against the sea surge, floored with heaps of brush, and lustrous Calypso came again, now with bolts of cloth to make the sail, and he finished that off too expertly. Braces, sheets, and brails he rigged all fast on board, then eased her down with lavers into the sunlit sea. So I made a list on this. There's a lot of underlining things I did, but the list is the big thing. He's making boats, right? He's making a boat here. And these are all gifts from Calypso. This is part of that Xenia hospitality stuff. And it's everything that Odysseus needs to make a boat. And I added down here that she gave cloth for sails. That goes in the list as well. So not a ton to annotate in that stanza. That was the 4th day, and all his work was done. On the 5th, the lovely goddess launched him from her island, once she had bathed and decked him out in fragrant clothes, and Calypso stowed 2 skins aboard, dark wine in one, the larger one held water, added a sack of rations filled with her choicest meats to build his strength, and summoned a wind to bear him onward, fair and warm. The wind, lifting his spirits high, royal Odysseus spread sail, gripping the tiller seated astern, and now the master mariner steered his craft, sleep never closing his eyes, forever scanning the stars, the Pleiades and the plowman set to late. Then the great bear with that mankind also calls the wagon. She wheels on her axis, watching the hunter. And she atone, I think it's supposed to be she alone. Yeah. Oh, I read it wrong. Yeah. She alone is denied a plunge in the ocean's baths. Hers were the stars, the lustrous goddess told him, to keep hard to port as he cut across the sea. And 17 days he sailed, making headway well. On the 18th, shadowy mountains loomed slowly. The Phaeacians' island reached toward him now, over the misty breaker rising like a shield. So we had a simile there. It takes him 17 days to sail to Phaeacia. And the stars help him. Calypso helps him. He's getting help to get to Phaeacia. And remember, that was predicted that he had to go to Phaeacia first, and then he's going to go home. But now Poseidon, god of the earthquake, saw him. Just returning home from his Ethiopian friends from miles away on the Solmi mountain range, he spied Odysseus sailing down the sea and made his fury boil even more. He shook his head and rumbled to himself, "Outrageous! Look how the gods have changed their mind about Odysseus while I was off with my Ethiopians. Just look at him there, nearing Phaeacia's shore, where he's fated to escape his noose of pain. That's held him until now. Still, my hopes ride high. I'll give that man his swamping fill of trouble." So Poseidon's mad. And the reason is he's mad, and we're going to find this out later when we read book 8. But he's mad because he killed one of his sons, right? One of his sons is a Cyclops named Polyphemus. And we'll find that out later. It's not a spoiler. The Cyclops is a big deal in the Odyssey. And we also have a blue box for fate. But remember, we have this problem with fate in this book where is it fate, or if it's the gods, what's going on? Is it divine intervention? So I wrote a note about that. And just make sure that you're annotating this as we go along. I'm not going to talk about every annotation anymore. With that, he rammed the clouds together, both hands clutching his trident, churning the waves into chaos, whipping all the gales from every quarter, shrouding over in thunderheads the earth and sea at once. And night swept down from the sky, east and south winds clashed, and the raging west and north sprung from the heavens, roiled heavy breakers up. I thought that was some great description of this storm. And Odysseus's knees quaked, his spirit too. Numb with fear, he spoke to his own great heart. Wretched man, what becomes of me now at last? I fear the nymph foretold it all too well. On the high seas, she said, before I can reach my native land, I'll fill my cup of pain. And now, look, it all comes to pass. What monstrous clouds, King Zeus crowning the whole wide heaven black, churning the seas in chaos, gales blasting, raging around my head from every quarter. My death plunge in a flash is certain now. So he's blaming the storm on Zeus, even though it's really Poseidon, right? 4 times blessed, my friends in arms who died on the plains of Troy, those years ago, serving the sons of Atreus to the end. Would to God I died there too and met my fate that day. The Trojan swarms of them hurled at me with bronze spears, fighting over the corpse of proud Achilles. A hero's funeral then. My glory spread by comrades. Now what a wretched death I'm doomed to die. So I wrote down a note because the sons of Atreus are Agamemnon and Menelaus, and they are the major players in the Trojan War, right? Menelaus's wife, Helen of Troy, was the one that got captured. Agamemnon was kind of the king of the Greeks at that time. He has the most land. He's the most influential king, while Odysseus is still a king. So he wishes that he had died in the Trojan War. That would have been a better death than dying in this stupid storm. At that, a massive wave came crashing down on his head, a terrific onslaught, spinning his craft round and round. He was thrown clear of the decks, the steering oar wrenched from his grasp, and in one lightning attack, the brawling gale wind struck full force, snapping the mast mid-shaft and hurling the sail and sail yard far across the sea. He went under a good long while, no fast way out, no struggling up from under the giant waves' assault. His clothing dragged him down. Divine Calypso's gifts, but at last he fought his way to the surface, spewing bitter brine, streams of it pouring down his head. But half drowned as he was, he'd not forget his craft. He lunged after her through the breakers, laying hold and huddling amidships, fled the stroke of death. Pell-mell, the rollers tossed her along, down current, wild as the north wind, tossing thistle along the fields at high harvest, dry stalks clutching each other tightly. So the gale winds tumbled her down the sea, this way, that way. Now the south wind flinging her over to the north to sport with. Now the east wind giving her up to west to harry on and on. This is a crazy storm. And I thought, really good, beautiful imagery right there. Really good stuff. But someone saw him, Cadmus's daughter with lovely ankles, Ino, the mortal woman, once with human voice and called Leucothea. Now she lives in sea's salt depths. Esteemed by all the gods as she deserves, she pitied Odysseus, tossed, tormented so. She broke from the waves like a shearwater on the wing. So I underline that. That's a simile right there, right? It's a sea bird. And this Leucothea is a sea nymph. So I wrote down how to pronounce that name. Lit on the wreck and asked him kindly, poor man, why is the god of earthquakes so dead set against you? Strewing your way with such a crop of troubles, but he can't destroy you, not for all his anger. Just do as I say. You seem no fool to me. Strip off those clothes and leave your craft for the winds to hurl, and swim for it now. You must strike out with your arms for landfall there. Phaeacian land where destined safety waits. Here, take this scarf, tie it around your waist. It is immortal. Nothing to fear now, neither pain nor death. But once you grasp the mainland with your hands, untie it quickly, throw it into the wine dark sea, far from the shore, but you turn your head away. So this goddess, right, comes to help Odysseus, and she gives him her scarf, and he's supposed to tie it around. It's going to make him immortal so that he can swim to Phaeacia. So I did some divine intervention, some fate stuff. All right. With that, the goddess handed him the scarf and slipped back in the heavy breaking seas like a sheer water once again. Once again, we're using that simile. Sheer water is a seabird, right? So they're diving in the sea. And a dark, heavy billow closed above her, but the battle-weary Odysseus weighed two courses deeply torn, probing his fighting spirit. Oh no, I fear another immortal weaves a snare to trap me, urging me to abandon my ship. He was worried about that with Calypso earlier on. He is worried that the gods, these immortal people, are trying to trick him. He's very careful not to be tricked. I won't, not yet. That shore is too far away. I glimpsed it myself. Where she says refuge waits. No, here's what I'll do. It's what seems best to me. As long as the timbers cling and joints stand fast, I'll hold out aboard her and take a whipping. Once the breakers smash my craft to pieces, then I'll swim. No better plan for now. But just as Odysseus thrashed things out, Poseidon, god of the earthquake, launched a colossal wave. Terrible, murderous, arching over him, pounding down on him. Hard as a windstorm, blasting piles of dry parched chaff, scattering flying husks. So the long planks of his boat were scattered far and wide. But Odysseus leapt aboard one timber and riding it like a plunging racehorse. I made there's a simile right there, right? Stripped away his clothes, divine Calypso's gifts, and quickly tying the scarf around his waist, he dove headfirst into the sea, stretched his arms, and stroked for life itself. But again, the mighty god of earthquakes spied him, shook his head, and grumbled, deep in his spirit, go, go, after all you've suffered. Rove your miles of sea till you fall in arms of people loved by Zeus. Even so, I can hardly think you'll find your punishments too late. So Poseidon sends this huge wave to attack Odysseus, trying to get him to kill him at this last minute, but he's going to swim for it. He sees Phaeacia, he's going to swim for it. So next time in the next video, we'll see if he makes it to shore.